Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really getting into it, exploring this idea of the self, kai toi, as it's known in Vietnamese.
Right. And our main guide for this is a fascinating conversation. It's between Zen Master Thich Niệm and Thùy from that Vietcetera podcast. Bantan, bantan.
Yeah, episode 4, kai toi lam yi.
We're not just scratching the surface here. We're aiming for a proper deep dive.
Absolutely. This isn't just about, defining ego in a simple way.
Right.
Our goal really is to unpack how complex the self actually is, how it develops, the kind of challenges it presents, and most importantly, how figuring out a healthier relationship with it can actually lead to a much richer life.
It's like understanding the blueprint of your own inner world, isn't it?
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
And what immediately jumped out at me from their discussion was, well, how limited our usual view of the self often is. We tend to default to the negative, right? Like, oh, he's got such a big ego.
Yeah, that's the common take. But their conversation paints a much, much bigger picture. It covers everything from our instant emotional reactions, those snap judgments, to sadness, despair, but also, ambition, striving, expressing ourselves, even the search for peace or happiness.
And wanting to contribute, wanting to love others, it's all in there. It's way more than just arrogance.
Definitely.
So the self, fundamentally, it's described as a perception and also an instinct geared towards protecting ourselves, towards survival.
Okay, like a basic survival mechanism.
Sort of, yeah. Like an internal compass, you could say. Its core job is just ensuring you make it.
Right. So how does that compass, get set? Where do these perceptions and instincts actually come from?
Well, it starts super basic. Our fundamental needs, food, shelter, family connection, safety,
Essentials.
the absolute essentials. But then it expands pretty quickly. It starts reaching for things like recognition, affection, needing to know our place in the group, our social standing.
And they talked about something I found really interesting, how in early childhood, we sort of naturally get this feeling of being, uniquely special.
Oh, yeah.
All that praise, the attention, it kind of lays the groundwork for what can become quite a strong ego, maybe even an inflated one for a bit.
Precisely. That feeling of being the center of your own little world,
Yeah.
it's almost like a necessary phase for development.
Necessary.
Yeah, think of it like the foundation stone for your sense of who you are. But what's also key is that individuality isn't just built, it's also inherent. It's there from the start.
How so?
Well, our DNA, our specific upbringing, all our unique experiences, the way we personally filter things,
Yeah.
it all means each of us is genuinely distinct.
So feeling like a separate individual isn't just an illusion, there's a basis for it.
Exactly. We are wired, in a sense, to experience ourselves as independent entities.
Okay.
And then, as we hit adolescence, early adulthood, that real push to break free, to establish your own identity.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Right. It comes from that deep-seated belief in your own unique potential, separate from, say, your parents' influence. And then when you achieve things, get recognized, that solidifies the ego even more, builds that sense of personal pride.
So the self is kind of constructed layer by layer through experiences, through validation from others. But the conversation also stresses it's not like it's set in stone. It faces challenges, it changes.
Oh, definitely. Life throws curveballs, right? Everyone hits roadblocks, faces setbacks, experiences pain.
It's inevitable.
It is. And it's often in those tougher times that we start to realize, maybe for the first time, how much we actually need connection, how much we need support from others.
So the ego, which might have been pretty big and confident.
It starts to soften. Yeah. Its sharp edges get worn down a bit.
And this is where it gets really practical, I think, because keeping relationships going, romantic, work, friends, whatever, that takes a whole different set of skills, doesn't it? Things like, humility, actually listening to people, empathy, being willing to share.
Absolutely essential. You can't maintain connections without them. We start to really grasp our interdependence, our well-being, even just surviving sometimes, is tangled up with our relationships.
Yeah.
They mentioned that Take Me Home idea, that song. It captures that shift perfectly, that youthful desire for pure independence. Eventually, it often yields to that fundamental human need for belonging, for connection.
And that thought experiment they posed was quite powerful. What reason would you have left to live if everyone you cared about just disappeared.
Oof. Oh.
It really forces you to face how much our motivations are tied up with other people.
It really drives home that interconnectedness. And the discussion zooms out even further, bringing in a scientific angle.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that even down at the subatomic level, particles are linked, interconnected, which suggests this whole principle interaction isn't just a human thing.
Right.
It might be like a fundamental law of the universe. It kind of hints that maybe feeling completely separate is, well, maybe more of an illusion.
That's a big thought. It makes you think about how, like, one idea you share or a value you hold, it can ripple outwards in ways you'd never expect.
Touching lives you don't even know.
And the flip side, too, how we're constantly being shaped by things we don't even consciously register. You know, the sun, the weather, nature all around us.
Exactly. And what's really insightful is how they stretch that phrase, you are what you eat.
Beyond just food.
Yeah, way beyond. It suggests everything we absorb from our environment, tangible stuff, intangible stuff, it all becomes part of who we are. Like the analogy they used, a fire needs air to burn.
Ah, okay. So we need our environment, our connections to exist in the way we do.
Precisely. We're not these isolated little units floating around. We're part of a huge interconnected system.
So the big takeaway there seems to be we're not alone, we're connected. And just grasping that, even a little bit, can start to loosen the grip of that big ego.
That's it, exactly. And then the conversation shifts, gets really personal. Both Thuymin and Thuphimin share some quite profound reflections.
Yeah, Thuymin talks about feeling like she was melting during the talk and reflecting on that childhood thing, believing you're the center of the universe, which honestly I think most of us can probably relate to on some level.
Oh, for sure. And as we touched on, that early egocentric phase, it actually serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It's developmentally important. That positive feedback helps build a basic sense of self-worth.
Right, a foundation.
But the really crucial part is the shift.
Okay.
The gradual dismantling of that protective bubble, the dawning awareness that we're actually deeply connected to everything else.
And she makes a good point that transformation, while it can be beautiful, often isn't easy. It can involve real discomfort, struggling with those ingrained ego habits.
Yeah.
She notes that a big ego often gets tied up with our talents, our achievements. We get attached to them.
And it can become a trap, like being stuck in the spotlight, distorting how you see others, maybe even yourself.
Then Thuphimin shares some incredibly open stuff about his own life.
Yeah, that was striking.
Talking about being a star child, you know, helpful and kind, but also feeling sort of superior underneath.
And how that carried on, even into the monastery. His confidence in his own way of doing things sometimes made collaboration tricky.
That feeling of, I know best, even if you don't say it out loud, it's relatable, isn't it? Even if uncomfortable to admit.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But the real turning point he describes,
Yeah.
wow, the loss of his parents.
Yeah.
That was a massive catalyst. It sort of dissolved parts of that ego. He realized, despite any skills he had, he was just as vulnerable as anyone else to life's big changes.
A real leveler.
Totally. His focus shifted. Less about personal wins, more towards appreciating simple human connection.
Yeah.
Wanting to be, as he put it, normal in the best sense, just connected.
It's like that ego built on achievements just couldn't hold up against something so profoundly human, so uncontrollable.
Exactly. He basically had to relearn how to be in the world. He started really seeing the kindness in others, their sincerity, their dedication.
Observing differently.
And consciously rebuilding his sense of self. But this time, grounding it not in being better, but in wanting peace, real connection, love, wanting to contribute.
Yeah.
Recognizing how much he depended on everything, life, nature, community, teachers, ancestors.
That's a huge shift. And that story about the tears of empathy.
Powerful, isn't it?
Seeing the difference between his life and the hard labor of others and feeling that connection, that interdependence so deeply.
It really highlights how much we take for granted, how much relies on others' efforts.
Yeah.
It breeds that deep gratitude, that urge to give back. He even reframes his own suffering.
Yeah.
Not just his bad stuff that happened, but as a necessary slap, he called it. Painful, but ultimately a gift that led to understanding.
That's a challenging perspective, but interesting. And he also suggests something nuanced about the big ego.
What's that?
That it isn't just bad. That people with strong egos often have real talents, maybe a deeper searching quality. And that initial intensity, once the ego softens and integrates, it can actually fuel really positive contributions, like channeling that energy differently.
So the ego doesn't just vanish. It gets integrated into a bigger picture, one that includes others. And the joy starts coming not from your own success, but from seeing the positive impact you have.
Right. And Thùy also shares her moment realizing being alone isn't the same as being strong.
Another key insight. They also touch on something quite subtle, that even when you understand the self better, stability isn't guaranteed, especially when difficult emotions come up.
Ah, yeah. Like negative feelings are a liquid seeping in.
Exactly. The ego might be useful in a crisis, like giving you focus.
Right, like a shield.
But managing those persistent, subtle negative energies, that's harder. The ego can get in the way then.
Which highlights why pausing, reflecting on the ego, even for short moments, is so important.
Like meditation, yeah. Just observing it without judging it. They acknowledge it's a spectrum too. Some people aren't aware of their ego much at all. Others are actively working on understanding it. But it's an ongoing process, even for experienced folks.
So the goal isn't to kill the ego.
No, not at all. It's more like taming it, understanding it, like training a dog maybe. You need some ego to function, to interact with the world.
That makes sense. And distinguishing that from just having healthy boundaries seems crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can be helpful, engaged, but still know your limits. Recognize when you treat people differently, maybe without condemning yourself, just acknowledging it.
And using your position, whatever it is, for something bigger. Sharing useful ideas accessibly.
Yeah, there's a real sense of gratitude in their conversation, for the chance to collaborate, for the audience really listening. That positive feedback loop, that shared energy, it matters.
So ultimately, it's about cultivating a healthy ego, one that's present but not harmful, responsible, valuable to yourself and others.
Right, focusing on the positive impact, the good energy,
Yeah.
and noticing how your quality of life actually improves when you do that.
There's also this idea about some people feeling like chosen ones from a young age, like they have a bigger purpose.
That can be a driving force beyond just personal well-being. Niệm talks about his own sense of purpose evolving.
How so?
Moving from just seeking happiness for himself and others to a deeper commitment, serving others without personal gain, without reservation.
Letting go of the need for recognition.
Exactly. Overcoming fear, overcoming the ego's demands, to even ask for help when needed for that larger cause. He mentioned feeling like the universe aligns when you're truly ready to serve like that.
That requires a lot of inner work, I imagine. Stillness, reflection.
Crucial, he emphasizes, to understand your path, to learn how to live fully right now in this moment, where work and life aren't separate compartments anymore.
And seeing challenges not just as problems, but as messages.
Yeah. Signals to reflect, maybe adjust your course. He suggests regularly checking in with your ego, asking, is it kind right now or unkind? Is it feeling small and connected or large and demanding? Making those little adjustments to avoid regrets later.
It's a constant practice then.
It seems so. Cultivating inner peace, positive energy, aligning yourself with those positive forces, focusing on what you can control, your inner state, your intention, and trusting the rest.
Living fully right now with a self that's kind, radiant, and valuable. That sounds like a worthy goal.
Indeed.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really has taken us through a lot, hasn't it? Exploring the self from all these different angles.
It really has, from how the ego naturally develops.
Right, that early childhood piece.
It's realizing how deeply interconnected we all are. And then this ongoing work, this subtle practice of cultivating a healthier inner landscape.
So for you listening, what part of this whole exploration really stood out? What's resonating with you right now based on your own experience?
Maybe take a little quiet time after this. Just reflect on your own relationship with your ego. Ask yourself, am I generally operating from a place of kindness towards myself and others?
Or are there places where maybe the ego is causing a bit of friction, getting in the way of deeper connections, perhaps?
It's worth considering.
Because this journey of self-discovery, it really is continuous, isn't it? It's not like you arrive at a destination.
Not at all. It's lifelong.
We really hope this discussion has given you some valuable things to think about, maybe a slightly shifted perspective on yourself and how you relate to the world. Remember, even small shifts in how we understand ourselves can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us on this exploration today.
Yeah, thank you for listening.